morning and welcome to Mental Health Matters Office Hours. It's the show where we talk about all things workplace well-being. Today's show is on professional exploitation, and this can cover a number of different areas. We welcome back therapist Sandra Stein to talk about this and unpack this issue. But I want you to think about the ways in which you may be feeling exploited. Are you being asked to work longer than you should be? Are you being told, oh, we're changing your job description, but you're not going to have to sign a new contract? Are you not being paid? So this may be true of contractors. Do your clients demand more than you actually are able or willing to give, or that's in your contract to give? All these questions will be looked at. Let's head over to the main studio. So, Jude, good morning.
Good morning.
Professional exploitation.
It's not something we've really covered in depth before, is it?
No, which is why I'm really happy that Sandra's coming along to talk about this.
Yes.
But I did a paper a long time ago with Brunel University, the Accountancy Finance Department, on the exploitation of small businesses and micro businesses when it comes to paying invoices. So that's just one example of where professionals can feel exploited, but it may not be because the big organisation knows it's doing it. So the situation there is when you as a small business or a micro business, you put in a 30-day invoicing. However, what's the norm for the big business is 365 days. Because they can function that way.
Yes, of course. They have enough cash flow and money.
But for a small business, you just haven't got that. No. You need to be paid to do the next thing. Yeah. And then I spoke to a lot of people who do things like, you know, making soaps or making candles. And sometimes the most exciting thing for them is they get stocked in somewhere big like Sainsbury's or Morrison's or one of the big supermarkets. But then they are hit with the same problem. And if you're not paid with that monthly cash flow, how can you produce more the soaps or the candles, because you have got no money to buy the things? And then in this particular situation, it was the Small Business Commissioner. She gave one example, and she said actually she had a micro business call her, and so on their behalf she called the company who hadn't paid the invoice, and the company was so kind of oblivious to it and said, oh my goodness, I didn't realise that. We've just paid £1 million invoice already. I thought the £300 could wait.
Oh my goodness.
And it's like, well, I get your thinking.
Yeah.
But for that person, £300 not going to work.
Exactly.
It's not going to wait. So, yeah, that's one example of...
That's a really big issue just in itself.
Yeah.
And there's other types of exploitation. And probably those big companies don't even realise that they're exploiting the small companies.
And what's interesting in this situation is that when you've got that you're withholding the money, effectively you're borrowing from the small company.
Of course.
The big company is borrowing from the small company, which is quite strange.
And making interest on the money that the small company should have.
Exactly. And so another form of exploitation is something you've talked about as well, and that's kind of the behaviours that you can get, that expectation that I can treat you how I like and you're still going to work.
Exactly. Sometimes I get the impression that a small company feel they don't have to adhere to employment law, for example, and they can do what they like and treat their staff how they like, and maybe that's where that comes from. If there's only one member of staff, then do we really have to follow policies? And I've also had, do we really need a policy for that?
Oh gosh!
Yes, you do.
Yes,
because one member of staff is just as important as 100 or 1,000 or whatever.
Yeah,
so that's a big issue as well.
And I think what Sandra will talk about is there's sometimes professional exploitation when you're starting out as a therapist or a freelancer in any way, because when you start out, you have to do a lot of work for free.
Yes.
To get, otherwise, how do you get a reputation if you don't have the experience?
Yes.
And I think Emma Kendrick has talked about this on the show before as well. You don't get the experience without having the work, and then, so how much do you work for free? But that's the same with freelancers.
It is, and my husband does freelance work as well, and he will always do the first session for free so that his clients can, you know, see how they're going to get on. He's a dog walker and a dog sitter, so you know, how do they get on with the dogs, and how do the dogs get on with him, for example. And then he's also had where he has his set rates. Yeah. And if we feel it's appropriate to adjust, that's up to us.
That's up to you.
But we've also had where clients have said, well, I'm only going to pay you X, even though your rates are Y, And he said, well, okay. But actually, he probably should have said, well,
actually, no,
thank you, but no, thank you.
And I think this is what Sandra's going to unpack with us. So it was great to speak with Sandra, and we're going to go over to that interview now. It's such a pleasure to have you back on the show again. Thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me again. I loved the first time, and I'm going to love this time too.
Oh, I absolutely loved the first time as well. And you were so fascinating. And that somatic aspect of Gestalt therapy in the area which you work, it's so important. It's something that I've come to realize, because you get a lot of coaching clients, I think, sometimes, where they know what's right, they know what's cognitively, they just don't feel it. And that feeling aspect is so key to healing.
Absolutely. And I think more than ever, we're living a lot either cognitively or externally. And we need more than ever to come back to our senses, to our body, to our felt experience. And that takes practice, right? So some of us don't know how to do it straight away. And some of us can give up because we just feel like we're failing. But it takes practice, repetition, patience. We get there. We get there.
Yes. And this is why you are the perfect person to talk about this topic, which is quite contentious, but a really important one. So we talk a lot about toxic work environments, especially as a sole trader. We ourselves can get into difficult environments because, when you're starting out, you sort of think, well, I'll do this for free. And you're highly qualified, really experienced, hugely trained, but because you're trying to enter the market, you end up really underpricing yourself. How do we, when it comes to starting our career, recognize the value of our training, of our experience, of our academic background?
So interesting you asking this. It's like, it feels like it is in my field, this subject at the moment, because I gave a workshop on this particular subject, and I was invited to give other workshops to practitioners that are becoming qualified, because for example, myself, I spent 4 years training to become a counselor, to become a psychotherapist, with one side of my brain, which is feel. And then we don't receive enough training in how it is in the real world for you to transform this into a product that can help people and can provide you with what you need to survive, an income.
Yes.
And like myself, when I first started, I hear more and more about professionals that haven't got a clue. How do I price? How many should I give a free introductory call? Should I not give? How long should it be? Should I pick up a phone call or text message outside work hours? And all of that is backed up with the fear of, I want to make it happen. I want to make through, because there's a lot of practitioners being qualified coming to the market. The market is full of practitioners that sort of work in the same industry but differently. Yes. So the competition is out there.
Yes.
Out there. I would say to practitioners that are qualifying or newly qualified is try to get yourself a course like that, a workshop where you can train or learn how you set up your business, which kind of platforms you can promote yourself, how much you can pay, because we start from our own budgets, don't we?
Yes,
we had zero when we start.
Yep.
And price it at the price where you feel is fair. Because there's also a balance between experience and fee.
Yes.
Right? But also the other side of the coin is also applied. I know practitioners that have been 5 years in the job and still charge the same amounts that they charged 5 years ago, because they feel there's something about, I don't think I'm worth it. There's something about the I forgot the expression.
It's sort of imposter syndrome. It's that.
That's right. It's the imposter syndrome. And what I did, my personal experience was, I had to fake it until I made it.
Wow.
I didn't really have the help that I'm offering now because I just couldn't find anybody. I wasn't close enough to somebody successful or experienced enough to sort of give me the
Yeah.
light the path for me. I didn't have it. I had to stumble across the path, but I made it.
Yes.
And now I'm trying to give a little bit of my knowledge and save the people, save time for the practitioners and counselors, psychotherapists that are coming out to the industry.
I think that's so helpful because I think whilst we can do our homework on the going rate, it and when we do that, we can say to somebody, well, I can give you a discount on that and so on. It does get to a point where you've hit the nail on the head. You have to believe you are worth what you're charging.
Mm.
Otherwise, you may as well be doing it for free because if you don't think you're worth it, I don't even think you'll get the client.
100% is about self-confidence, and it's about expressing the energy to the
Yes.
client also, that
Yes.
you are there, that anchor, that safe space for the client to come in with that vulnerability, fragility, and the pricing, the tone of your voice, the mannerisms, your physical and body language, it all encompasses on that. How much can I trust this person?
It's really true. We need to consider that our I guess our expression of
Mm,
trust and integrity comes within all of that. And if we're unsure, people might get an off sort of energy or vibe from us, and it
100%.
won't be related at all to anything other than pricing, but that's still going to come across. Um, we also, as practitioners, we need to navigate who our client is sometimes because I have ex-students. So I deliver sessions in unis who want to see me for coaching, but I also have corporate clients who want to see me for coaching. I cannot charge my student the same as I charge the corporate, but I'm very lucky in that usually with corporate, there's a ballpark figure that the corporation pays. So
Yeah.
sometimes you can latch on to what other people are sort of saying as is the going rate. But you need to be mindful of adjusting, don't you? Because
Yes,
unless you're specifically one type of client.
yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's actually the way you practice was the way my counselor back in my time practiced also. And because she was able to be flexible and according to how much the client can afford
Yeah,
comfortably, she
yeah.
was able to give me a student rate, which I was so grateful for whoever was paying more. Because it really enabled me to have a great psychotherapist that looked after me while I was training. And now I repeat the same wave. I'm a ripple effect of her. I have clients that can't afford £100, can't afford £150. The
Mm.
max they can afford is 50.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if I balance my books cleverly enough and with self-care, because
Yes.
at the end of the day, I need to feel happy and content
Yeah.
with what I am affording myself to also, then I can sort of do that balancing and help people in need that can't afford as much as a corporate person,
You
for
see,
example.
I love how you put that. I love how you said, actually, you as the student were so grateful to the corporate who was able to afford the full rate so that you could enjoy that high level practice and experience. And I love that. I've never even considered it that
Oh,
way,
exactly.
that
Yeah, I was on the receiving end
it's a
of it.
kindness. And that's,
Yeah.
yeah. So thank you to the corporations out there who do pay
Thank
us
you for the high-paying clients.
that,
Thank you.
yes, for recognizing that this is what our service is worth, but also
Mm,
allowing us to give that service to somebody who absolutely cannot afford it, but recognizes they need it.
100%.
That's
100%.
that's brilliant. Um, this is a difficult question. How do we know if we are being exploited? So, for example, you might, I don't know, say you've got a student who then comes back to you later when they're in a much higher paying job, that kind of expects the student rates.
That happens.
Yeah. How do
That
we
happens.
navigate that?
I think it's a matter of being honest. Surely by then we will have established a authentic, honest, and very relational relationship with this person,
Yes.
right? And hopefully you were able to explain where you came from, but what you and me when we first established our fee, but giving the wonderful change that you're having in your life, I was wondering if we could have a conversation about renewing the fee that we have at the moment, because really it is about giving the person the power. You have now the power to contribute more to your own self-care,
Yes.
to the maintenance of your well-being, right? It's almost like you're valuing this person's output and also this person's commitment of carrying on with therapy, given that or coaching, given the fact that they can afford a bit more.
Yes. Yes.
Right? And I think as a practitioner, you will feel, and I certainly, because I've been through that experience, I will feel more that I am appreciating my work and I appreciate all the efforts I put on myself in CPD learning, in my supervision, in my private therapy. I will feel satisfied that, okay, I am charging accordingly to what I'm giving also. I'm giving high quality, I would like to think, support to this person, unconditional positive support and regard. So I like to feel that I've been rewarded by that because it's good for my self-esteem.
Yes. I love the way that you see that, because that removes so much of those self-doubts that we have. And you are so right in that if a client has come back to us, then we must have that open relationship, that honest relationship that's been built up already. And there's a lot of merit in reminding each other of that, because that's key to the coaching or the therapeutic relationship. Now, I know that exploitation can go even deeper and get even sort of darker than this, because there can be exploitation rings in the workplace, and in corporations, people are expecting contractors to fill out modern slavery forms, all of those sorts of things. But when you're working on your own, what do we need to look out for when we're hiring staff, or maybe opening our practice doors to let other people come in? We need to be aware that these things are going on outside.
100%. I think the key thing is to be aware of what culture would you like to maintain, to create and maintain in your businesses. It can be a small, medium, or large, but if it begins from you, have a think about how would you like to be treated,
Yeah.
and then pass that on.
Yes.
And then just be vigilant, what's going on, who is actually passing on and making this culture the kind, the supportive, understanding, but also challenging, because sometimes we have to have hard conversations, challenging conversations. It's not just about rainbows, but about also sitting with this person and say, I don't appreciate the amount of workload you are requesting from me. I am giving away some of my own private time to accomplish or to finish what you requested, and I'm not happy about that. How can we adjust this? And it's hard to hear that, but at the end of the day, if you created a sort of relationship where you can support but challenge each other also, it's almost the workforce will select itself. Whoever wants to be in a relationship like that, in a culture like that, can stay, and whoever don't feel like, you know what, this is not for me, well, good luck. You can go on and find somewhere else to.
Yes, I think that's really important, and it's about recognizing and asserting and living by our values first. That's absolutely key, and I think that's kind of easier when you are the leader or the owner of the facility. If you're working there, I think the same thing applies. So what you said at the end there was, actually, if you don't want to work in that particular culture, whatever that culture is, if it doesn't suit you, you don't have to stay. And I think we as practitioners also need to recognize that actually, if people keep on raising my rent for the room, or keep telling me that I have to work from this time to this time when that wasn't what I originally negotiated, maybe it's time to find a different space.
100%. I did it myself.
Really?
I did it myself. No one could believe. Sandra, how could you leave this institution? Everybody dreams getting to this institution. But 2 months in it, no, thank you. I don't like this. And I'm leaving. And I left. I left trusting that the universe would give me enough clients so I could have just my private practice. And it happened. Sometimes you have to let go to make, sometimes no, I will say, you have to let go of things that make you unhappy, uncomfortable, to make space for other things that are being prepared for you.
Absolutely. Yes, 100%. Now, this is a bit of a sidetrack, just because you're not the first person to say this who is a highly, highly renowned practitioner in a highly, highly renowned institution. And I think it is worth reminding practitioners out there that sometimes highly renowned institutions behave badly.
100%, yes. 100%. And you've got to, because I know of people that stay regardless just because of the name.
Yes.
And my question is, don't you think you have a worthwhile name to grow yourself? You have.
Yeah.
It just needs energy. It just needs your support. It just needs your full attention to it. You're giving attention to somebody or something that you wake up not looking forward to go to do, to be with, and where you could be doing the opposite.
Yeah. I think in a way you've answered the next question, because if, for example, an institution places pressure on you to give out a diagnosis or to do something that you're not comfortable doing, which can lead to your own feelings of moral distress and potentially moral injury, but you don't want to just leave, sometimes we do have to, sometimes leaving is the only option to retain our own values.
100%, yes. And that's how I felt. I felt that because I had recently graduated, and actually my mind was going to, wow, I thought this would be different. I studied and I give my soul and my heart and my mind into my studies, and it's about that. Oh gosh. So it was it was a bit like, thankfully I had enough support, and I do a lot of meditation. I have my own therapy, the therapists that look after me, to be able to say, no, this can be beautiful, and this can be successful, and then this can be something that it what makes me feel right. That's why I'm on this earth. That's why I'm here. Yes, I'm making my tiny contribution to a better place. It doesn't have to be this must heavy and diagnosis leading, box ticking, categorized. It doesn't have to be like that.
Yes. And I think in training, in so many ways, I think you're led to believe that your next step is this. This is what everyone aspires to do. And actually, that brings me to a question that someone raised recently in the week about being in the situation where you're not happy. It is a big name. Other people are getting on with it. You're not getting on with it. And the question is, but what's wrong with me? But you're so right in saying, well, actually, it can be this light touch that changes the world, the flap of the butterfly wing, not this great big, I'm with this name and this name is the thing that makes the change, because it doesn't. It's people. that
It's
makes.
people. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And sit with yourself, make a list of things that doesn't you feel that doesn't fit. What is it? Is it people's mindset? Is the culture? Is the things that you've been asked to do? What is it that doesn't really fit with your passion, your authentic self? And if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. It doesn't matter if it fits for 100 people, 1,000. If it doesn't fit for you,
Yes.
you have a commitment with your own existence on this earth to make it as good as you can. There's a lot of challenges that's thrown at you that you don't have control of. Take control of the things you can.
Yeah.
Never mind the 100 others that get along. Never mind. Good for them. Good luck.
Yes. Yes.
Right? But you
Yes.
stay with yourself. 100%.
Absolutely. Oh gosh, I couldn't agree more. I love chatting with you. And so, by the same token, there is a bravery that comes with that. There is an authenticity, but it can be quite difficult to find, especially if you're new. So, what if you're in the situation where, it hasn't happened to you, but you can see what you believe could be exploitation, or you actually stumble upon exploitation happening to someone else in the workplace? Where do you then sit with the, oh, I need to say something, or I don't, but I might jeopardize my career? It's quite hard when you're starting out to find that courage. How would you sort of
Oh, right. Yes, it is hard. It is hard. I would, the thing again, what I had was my own therapy, and I really shared with them how unhappy I was in this place, and they helped me to make a decision that I had to make. And again, I couldn't replace the salary, and I needed the salary, because push comes to shove is about survival also. So I sort of just gave it a chance to, okay, I'm going to get out. I'm too unhappy, and build my own practice. But yes, as if you're on your own and you're new and you don't have that sort of that courage, or even the support to do it, I think you need to rely heavily on how happy or unhappy you really feel. And what could you do to change it? Or even not play, but do an experimental, imaginary exercise. How would I feel like if I didn't have to work for this place? How would it feel like if I woke up and I actually went to my own rented room private practice? How would it feel like?
Yeah.
Right? And from that point, break it down to what are the physical, practical steps you need to take to get there.
Yes, knowing what it is, knowing what you like, knowing what you don't like, knowing your values. And the irony of us as practitioners talking about this is, of course, this is something we need to have been doing throughout training as well. So it can be so hard. You know it cognitively, but don't always feel it
Yeah, yes, 100, yeah.
when push comes to shove. Um, Also, of course, sometimes problems in the workplace are just due to the workplace being broken. I'm not making excuses for it, but how long do you yourself, I guess it's different for every individual, but when does one more broken promise become one too many? Where
Yes.
do we set our boundaries? How do we set our boundaries?
I think the boundaries have to be set at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just keep an eye on how are they being tested or pushed or moved from one place to another.
Mm.
And again, it's a self-reflection of how do you feel when these boundaries are broken or pushed or challenged? Do you feel unseen, unheard, disrespected, disregarded, not recognized? How do you feel?
Yeah.
And hopefully, this all of us will have some sort of support system that we can go and relay this experience and have that guidance and help to either create a courage to express ourselves to our superiors. That's something I hear a lot is people are scared of speaking about their discomfort, because they're afraid of losing their position, the job, or losing their client. But so it's about that. It's about the courage to talk about uncomfortable feelings, emotions, experiences, and situations. But also ultimately is again about how happy, after so many tests and so many boundaries broken, how can you identify with this place?
Yes.
How can you relate to this place? Is the passion gone? Is the love broken? Is the trust broken?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you repair it?
Yes. I think that actually then leads into my next question, which is about sometimes those changes can happen quite insidiously, they can happen quite slowly, and it might happen without the organization even being conscious of it. They can sell something to you as this, and they may not deliberately be meaning to use you or mislead you, but that's what actually happens because maybe they have to react to a change in society or the community or anything like that. We need to just keep checking in with ourselves, don't we? And that
We
we owe that
do.
to ourselves.
Yes, we do, because also, you might be flexible enough to, when you pay attention and see that, oh, this is not what I was sold, but can I cope with this? Can I stay with this? Can I be flexible? So because I like the work I do, I like the people I work with, I like the general culture. Yes, I can. Right. Because a bit of malleability and flexibility is always very, very healthy. Right. And so sometimes we do have to change the goalpost, and we do have to be more flexible and adapt to the environment. And that also is honorable. And
Yes.
it says, yes, and it says how much you are also able to adapt and to be resilient.
I love that because actually, when I started that question, I know I had in mind a more negative connotation, but what you're saying is actually maybe if the organization has responded to the community and you just feel a bit uncomfortable, maybe you need to, you know, it might be great that you're in a situation where the organization is responding and kind of bringing you with them because that is
Awesome.
the response that's needed. Really nice to see that we need to always approach things from a non-egotistical perspective, and that makes
Mm. Yeah,
so,
great point. Great point. Yes.
so much easier, well, so much healthier, I think. um, okay, this is now what we kind of a lot of discussions take place about the workplace, but in our profession, we also have clients who can maybe start taking advantage. This is, you alluded to this earlier. Do I answer a text out of office hours? And we might well have set our boundaries, but it's that, oh, this one thing won't hurt. And it does.
Mm.
How do we begin to kind of, A, recognize that this is happening? And B, if we've let it happen, how do we pull back from it when the
Mm.
one text isn't just the one text? It's actually every day they're contacting us at that time. And we know we feel the shame and the guilt. I shouldn't have done it in the first place.
Yeah, it happens. Sometimes we just slip into send that very, the supportive text message. And because some of our clients, they don't talk to anybody else about the things that they talk to us. So they can't make that, send that text message, say, I'm struggling today, or I had an insight or something. You're not really immune to it. And I must say, sometimes I reply, if I am if I'm not busy, if I'm not in the middle of work, and if I feel like it, and if I feel that it's important to validate what's going on the other side. But if it becomes too much, which hasn't happened to me, if it has become too much, you're going to have to assert we say the contract. But for me, contract sounds very business-like in the
Yeah.
work that we do, which is a so with another so. Um, but it's just a gentle conversation about how important it is to keep the energy contained.
I
So
love
when
that.
I talk,
I love it.
yes, when I talk to my clients about it, I explain exactly how I feel it. I can't be in the middle of sweeping my house and then I get a profound text message. How am I? I can. It's a bit fragmented.
Yes.
So the way I explain to my client is, or I ask my client is, could you, instead of texting me, write it down in a note? Write it down, all these insights, these feelings, the triggers, how you felt about something that happened on Monday, and we're going to see each other just on Friday. And we can go through them in the session, because in the session we are together.
We're focused. Yeah.
We focus. The energy is contained. And believe me, what happened then will present itself here now.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it's one of the Gestalt's theory is what's happening in the here now happens outside too.
Of course. Yes. Yes.
Happens then too.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a gentle way of saying, keep it to yourself. And also I think it's not to yourself, but in a more contained way. And I think another thing that's very important with that kind of boundary is not to get the client or the patient dependent on you or dependent on anybody else.
Yes.
For their own self, for their regulation, for their maturity. So they can rely on themselves. And journaling it's I mean, I know I'm going like completely, but
no, you're right though.
Journaling, which when I say to them, write it down, we go through it, is a way of them talking to themselves. They're therapizing themselves. They're creating this new part of them that is calming, regulating, listening, attentive. So clients win in many ways, and so do we.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's so important, because I think I've seen therapists where in many ways they become very codependent on their patients, and that is a very slippery slope. I know that's often to do with people's own personal situations, but it's not healthy for them nor the client. But you're absolutely right. It is about, and I love that, because reasserting the coaching contract would be the phrase we would use, reasserting boundaries. But I love that, is containing the energy in the space where it can be discussed with meaning, is absolutely beautiful. And it is a really not just gentle, but really effective way of putting it, because that's exactly what it is you're doing. So can you give some top tips for speaking up if you feel you are being exploited? That's the first thing. And then maybe some tips if you to prevent exploitation. So, what to do if you're in the point of crisis, but what to do to protect yourself.
To protect yourself, yes. I think the first one is, I hope you work in a culture, in a place culture that is psychologically safe for you to have a space to speak your mind, obviously with kindness, with politeness, with consideration, right? And also understanding that you are responsible for your self-care, not your employers. I think that's what's happening at the moment with this beautiful movement about life balance, is that there is a misconception that the businesses need to make your life better, and it's not like that. Is the businesses, the corporations, they become more aware of not exploiting, not asking more than, and also recognize that that person has got a life. It's a wife, it's a husband, it's a mother, it's a priest, they also have a life, right? But it's not the corporation's responsibility to take care of your well-being. Yes. There's so much we can do as people. So it's about that. So the first thing is hopefully open communication, open and clear communication with the person you can talk to. And if that's not in place, then it takes a much more complicated measure to go through, because then we're talking about something more complex.
Yeah.
If you don't feel safe to speak your mind.
Yes. That's something very different. That's a very different situation.
That's a very different situation. And one tip or two tips I would give, which I talk to my clients. I have clients that they seek therapy because of the workplace, because of their relationship with their bosses and things like that. I will always say to them, don't bottle up, because you grow resentful. you grow bitter, sad. And I have seen an enormous amount of clients unhappy with that work, then developing anxiety, panic attacks, and depression, all because they are bottling in what they feel, what they think, how they were treated, how they disagree, and it doesn't have any outlet. It becomes a disease.
Yes.
Because your body is in a dis-ease, which is the opposite of ease.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I think so really sums up your courage to create the courage. Maybe you can rehearse at home, role play. That's something that really, really helps to dilute the nervousness, stress, fear. Role play, right?
Yes.
That
Yes.
could be one practical tip. And communication.
Yeah. Yeah.
Communication. Don't bottle it up. Don't take it home either.
That's a really good point, because what's happened has happened in that space. And if you bring it into the home space, then actually you're taking that energy with you, and the home space becomes contaminated, for want of a better word.
It's a cascade effect, yeah.
Yes, with that negativity, and it can spoil the safe environment that you have. That's so important. Do you have any tools for sort of preventing exploitation? Yeah, I know we need to make our boundaries and our values clear in the first instance. Is there anything that maybe we can look out for, or anything that we need to always have at the back of our mind
To bringing it home.
to prevent us from being exploited? You know, when you join as a new self-employed freelance.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think at first you always need to give yourself some time to know the place a bit better.
Yes, that's
to see how it is, to see your connection with the place and with the people, but always reflecting in how comfortable do I feel here? How at ease do I feel here? And if I don't, what is the issue? Is it with me or is with the environment?
Yeah.
Right? I've got some clients, for example, that project their parents on their bosses. And they really want the bosses to give that sort of love and recognition. And it becomes such a sentimental and emotional projection that I need to bring them to the reality and say, this is business.
Yeah.
Be aware if you are really emotionally connecting with something that should be more cognitively and practical, right?
Yeah.
Or oh yes, you're being really disrespected. Oh yes, your boundaries being pushed, and yes, you're being exploited. So there's always that balance also.
Yes. What is it? Is it me? Is it the environment? And what's the reality?
Right. Wonderful.
Yes. I love it. Oh my goodness, Sandra. As before, I could talk to you all day, and I would love to. We have to finish there, but where can people find you, please?
People can find on my Instagram, which I will leave the link below. On my Instagram has got all the details about me, my work phone number, and my website. I have a YouTube channel, I have a Facebook channel, and I have a TikTok channel. I'm everywhere. I'm spreading the word.
And so you should. As always, thank you so much, Sandra. That was absolutely a fascinating conversation, so essential.
Thank you, Audrey. So easy to talk to you. So easy. Thank you very much for having me again. Thank you.
For today's Business Boost, this comes from teletherapywithsarah.com. It's a blog, and she's given 12 signs you work at an exploitative group practice. So do have a listen to some of these and see whether any of these resonate with you. And if they do, it may be worth raising the point. So number 1, you're working more hours than you committed. Number 2, love bombing. So other people are being hired when they're really inexperienced, but then they're really, really praised a lot, almost to keep them there, just because for some reason their role's to be filled. Well, we know what the reason is likely to be. Supervision feels like therapy. So this is in a therapeutic practice where you have supervisions so you can talk about the things that you have been dealing with during the week and so on. But if your supervisor is using that as therapy for themselves, that can be very problematic, and it's certainly not appropriate. When somebody says to you, "You're going to make so much money," can that really be guaranteed? If you look around, is this likely to happen? Incentivized pay. Now, this blog, Teletherapy with Sarah, does give you an example of this. This is how it's done. So they will say, right, if you want to work 20 clinical hours a week, so booking the clinical office for 20 hours a week, that's great, and we'll take 50% of your pay because you're hiring the office and so on. If you work 25, great, we'll only take 45%. If you want to work 30 hours, we'll only take 40%. And this is how people get you into the office for more, but actually end up paying you less. Number 6, clients are either not a good fit or you're pushed out of your remit and you are expected to take those clients. That's not healthy for you nor the client. Promises are broken with little follow through. Co-workers who leave are trashed behind their back, and there's no boundaries because of the phrase, "We're family." And that's also something to really watch out for, because when it comes to family, we do go over and above for them. However, the workplace is not supposed to be like that. There are rules, regulations, and those are there for our own good. So have a think about some of those. If they resonate with you, perhaps you might want to visit sites such as ACAS, because they might help you if you ever need to take a complaint or a formal issue forward. So, last part of the show. It's always interesting to reflect on other people's perspectives, and partly I think it makes me feel better to know when other people feel the same as you do.
Exactly, yeah. It's always good to hear that, isn't it?
It reminds me of when we did the show on workplace bullying.
Yes.
And so much of what people were saying was similar. It could have been the same place, and yet it was all these different businesses experiencing the same thing. So I think you can feel quite lonely.
Exactly. So just to hear your feelings being validated by someone else, you're not happy that someone else is going through that, but it's really comforting to know that, oh, I'm not the only one, and there are other people, especially when it is in a sector where it's surprising that you might experience this.
We've talked about this a lot, and actually therapy is not too much removed from third sector and charity, because again, therapy is a giving kind of profession.
Exactly.
And yet people are wanting to take so much free of charge.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you've ever experienced this as a freelancer. I've also had and this is bearing in mind I was charging £30 an hour. I've got complete DBS checking, teacher training, the whole lot, all the qualifications. So I was doing a small drama workshop for guides. I was only charging 30 quid for about 30 children, plus props and everything.
Wow, okay.
And the response was, "Oh, that's really expensive. My daughter, who's a drama student, can do it for free."
Oh my goodness, there's so much wrong with that.
There is, because it's even things like just safeguarding and health and safety. You need to have a training in that to some degree. But we find this in training as well, whereby if somebody does do it for free and people have a bad experience, they're not going to want to hire anyone else because they don't think training's worth it, or they don't think the workshop's worth it. And it is, it's just delivered badly the first time.
Exactly. And to say that you don't want to pay for experience, I mean, that's so backward thinking. It's really, really surprising, because experience is everything. If you know, guides are young people, if you're imparting information to them, you need to know it's quality information.
Exactly that. So I think I'm going to leave you today on this I'm going to summarise a story that I've read on the Business Bulls website, which is a great website. It gives you all these kinds of analogies. And this is about a mechanic who was called out to check a car, and came in, he did it all, literally had a look, got a spanner and tapped something in the engine, and then handed the guy a bill for £5,000. Of course, the guy goes, "Oh my gosh, what? You just tapped something with a spanner?" And the mechanic said, absolutely. It's a £50 call out, and the rest of the money is knowing where to tap. Have a healthy week.